Life as we all know it can be unpredictable, painful, and utterly disorienting. One moment you're coasting along smoothly and the next you feel like everything is crumbling. This is the emotional terrain that Pema Chodron invites us into with her powerful book, When Things Fall Apart. Far from offering neat solutions or empty reassurances, Chodron lovingly encourages us to turn toward our suffering, not away from it, and embrace our pain as a source of growth and transformation. The heart of her message is beautifully simple yet profoundly difficult. When everything falls apart, that's the exact moment we are being offered a chance to wake up. These moments of heartbreak, anxiety, grief, or uncertainty are not mistakes or obstacles. They are openings. And while our instinct might be to run, fix, numb, or distract ourselves, Chodron gently asks us to stay, to breathe, to lean in instead of pulling away. She draws deeply from her own experiences as a Buddhist nun and student of Tibetan teacher Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, and she doesn't preach from a pedestal. In fact, part of the book's healing power comes from how honest and relatable she is. She doesn't position herself as someone who's got it all figured out. Instead, she walks beside you through the darkness, sharing what she's learned with immense compassion and clarity. One of the core practices she emphasizes is learning to stay, to simply remain with what is, no matter how uncomfortable. When we feel like fleeing, emotionally or even physically, Chodron suggests we pause. Just stop. Notice the urge to escape and then sit with it. Whether it's boredom, fear, anger, or sorrow, we can use it as fuel for awakening instead of a reason to shut down. This approach, known in meditation as Shenpa, a Tibetan term for the hook of reactivity, is about catching ourselves in those habitual spirals of blame, defense, or distraction, and softening instead. The wisdom here isn't theoretical, it's intensely practical. For instance, if you're going through a breakup, instead of immediately distracting yourself or demonizing the other person, Chodron would ask you to sit with the raw feelings. Feel the ache in your chest, the tightness in your stomach. Get curious about it. There's no need to judge it or fix it. The emotions themselves are the path. They're messy but they're real. And in their honesty they carry us back to something tender and essential inside us. Our own vulnerability, our own human heart. Another powerful idea in the book is the concept of groundlessness. We're often taught to seek solid ground in life, to find something permanent, secure, predictable. But life doesn't work that way. Everything is in flux. Relationships change, bodies age, jobs come and go, and nothing stays the same. Chodron encourages us to stop fighting this reality and begin to welcome it. It's not about becoming passive or hopeless. It's about releasing our need for control and learning to trust the flow of life, even when it feels like we're being swept away. In Buddhism, this idea is connected to the teachings on impermanence. Chodron explores how suffering often arises not from what's happening, but from our resistance to what's happening. We don't want things to change. We want people to behave a certain way. We cling to identities, expectations, and illusions. And then we suffer when reality doesn't match our mental blueprint. But what if instead we met change with openness? What if we could say, this too, instead of why me? This radical acceptance is not about resignation. It's about empowerment. It's about choosing to meet life with presence, courage, and gentleness even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. One of the most transformative sections of the book touches on compassion. Not just toward others but toward ourselves. We're often our harshest critics. We beat ourselves up for not being strong enough, spiritual enough, or happy enough. But Chodron reminds us that compassion begins at home. If we can't meet our own pain with tenderness, how can we genuinely show up for others? She introduces a beautiful meditation practice called Tunglen, which means giving and taking. In this practice, you breathe in the suffering, yours or others, and breathe out relief, love, and comfort. It may sound counterintuitive, especially in a culture that often encourages pushing pain away, but Tunglen is about developing the capacity to hold pain without being consumed by it. You become a conduit for healing, both for yourself and for the world. You begin to realize you are not separate from others. Your heartbreak is not just yours, it's shared. And in that shared humanity there is healing. The book also addresses how we tend to label our experiences as good or bad, and how this binary view limits us. Chodron suggests that reality is far more nuanced. What if what feels like a crisis is actually an invitation? What if our worst moment is the beginning of our greatest awakening? She tells stories of people who faced loss, illness and despair. And through that very experience, touched something timeless and resilient within themselves. Not because they avoided their pain but because they turned toward it with honesty and love. This is the essence of what Chodron calls spiritual warriorship. Not fighting life but showing up for it with an open heart. The warrior doesn't armor up. They drop the armor. They become tender, present, and real. They stop needing to be perfect or fearless. Instead, they learn to be fully human. That is the real strength. Throughout the book, Chodron returns again and again to the importance of pausing. In a world that moves fast and demands constant productivity, pausing is an act of rebellion and healing. It's in the pause that we catch our breath. We remember we're alive. We reconnect with our deeper self. And in that space, we can choose differently. We don't have to follow our old patterns. We can let go, forgive, and try again. Her writing style is gentle but piercing. She doesn't sugarcoat things, but she also doesn't dramatize them. There's a calm steadiness in her voice, like a hand on your shoulder reminding you, you don't have to have it all together. You don't need to fix anything right now. Just be here. Just breathe. Chodron also explores how we relate to fear. Fear, she explains, is not the enemy, it's part of being alive. In fact, fear can be a powerful teacher if we stop running from it. She encourages us to sit with fear, to feel it in the body, and to observe its patterns. Most of our fears, she says, are not based in the present moment, but in stories we tell ourselves about what might happen. When we stop believing those stories, we return to the now. And in the now, there is usually far more spaciousness than we think. There's also a tender discussion about loneliness. Chodron explains that our deepest loneliness comes not from being physically alone, but from being disconnected from ourselves. When we numb or run from our inner life, we become strangers to our own heart. The antidote is intimacy, not with another person but with our own experience. When we can be alone and still feel full, present, and kind to ourselves, we are never truly lonely. One of the most moving parts of the book is her call to embrace hopelessness. That may sound strange at first. Why would we ever want to feel hopeless? But she reframes hopelessness not as despair, but as the willingness to let go of our rigid expectations and fantasies. True hope, she suggests, doesn't cling. It trusts. It allows life to unfold. When we let go of needing things to be a certain way, we become available to the richness of what is. We touch life more directly. Chodron's teachings don't offer a fast fix, but they offer something far deeper. A path of awakening that is honest, kind, and grounded in real human experience. She shows us that we don't need to be enlightened to be whole. We just need to be willing to stay, to feel, to soften, to try again. And through that gentle persistence, something extraordinary begins to happen. We find that we are far stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than we ever imagined. In the end, When Things Fall Apart is not just a book about surviving hard times. It's a guide to transforming them. It teaches us that our brokenness is not a flaw but a doorway. That in our most uncertain moments, we are closer to truth than we know. And that when we stop running and start staying, we discover that life, even in its rawest form, is always offering us the chance to begin again. With courage, with compassion, and with an open heart.